Hey, welcome back to Happy Little No Trees. I am hopefully the audio is working now, or at least it sounds better. I'm trying it with a mic, different setup. But anyways, you're here probably because the title says Technicolor and perfect exposure, and those are the things that we're going to talk about today. Are some tools that I've been working on. So we're just going to hop back over to the color page here and kind of get everything set up. Click back into Resolve. There we go, color page. So yeah, perfect exposure. So this is a tool that I've kind of had for a while that I made myself, and I thought I'd put it out into the world. There is a link to the description for it so that you can go get it. It costs money, but it's part of the reason there's things to do. But what it is if we turn all this off, you can see this image looks really weird. Oops, turned the wrong one off. But here is our basic image of our person up here in the land. Let me just check how we're doing here. Nobody. Is it streaming? Is it? Yeah, let's just change a setting. This will make everything run probably smoother as if we just drop out of here to not. There we go. Because it is trying to do a bunch of things. That should run a little bit smoother in OBS. But yeah, what we're looking at is skin check. We're going to change this to PEE, perfect exposure, every time. That is the name of this dctl that I am trying out. And you can see it does some weird things to your footage. Let's just see. It's up in diagnostics. And everything like that. So right now it's labeled perfect exposure delivered, PED, or P, which I changed the name to. Link in the description. You can get it. But what it is doing, it's a very simple little doohickey right here where it's just remapping the image to middle gray and letting and dumbing down the rest of the information on the screen. But yeah, I made this for myself in a weird way, like 2-3 years ago, for me to be better. I hate EL zones. If you hate like a false color generator, like that is like, we can bring that up. What normally you would see is I have a false color generator here. Go find it. And diagnostics, false color generator. So this is normally what you'd see on an image. Here is blah, false color, or something like that, EL zones and all that. And I just hate in my camera on my little monitor going, which color is the one that is supposed to be good? So I had made a LUT for myself a while back, and then I kind of turned it into a dctl so you can have it as well. But what it's doing is you put this at the end of your node tree. So we don't need this one. This one's, you'll see in a second. But at the end of your node tree, put in this. This is before you even go shoot your footage. So hopefully you have test footage from your camera or anything like that. Tell it what you want. What is the safe zone? What do you want to know is the meat of your footage? And right now it's set to half stop below middle gray and 1 stop above. So anything in that range of mid gray plus 1 stop and half stop below. So that is a 2.5 stop window of gravy. And we know mid gray is a very important thing, and I'll show you why in a second. And then it goes, how far out do you care about the image before it kind of cuts out? So I want to know where my shadows are 2 steps below that, and where my highlights kind of go up as well. So I can, after that, that's kind of where you're starting to compress down into the toe and overlay into the highlights. So if we have our normal pipeline, this is at our end of our tree, and our camera for this was a Sony S-Log, Sony Cin. We're putting it in Davinci Wide Gamma, Davinci Wide Intermediate, and going bloop. And that is our normal thing. And then if I was building a show LUT, say with OpenDRT, this is the OFX version over here, we would go from Davinci Wide Gamut, and now our image is coming back around. This would be our normal image. And in between, I'd probably hop into contour and fiddle around with my contrast curves and kind of make, whatever basic look that I'm stacking up in terms of making this image. And now if you're looking at this, you're like, oh, where's mid-gray on there? Well, in here, in your working timeline, Davinci Intermediate, it's around 0.18. Like if we click on, say, his face, you're going to see, boop, it's down here, low end of the image. That's fine. But if we click here, once it's been tone scaled back out by our DRT, that face is going to put an anchor somewhere closer to the middle of our shot, our linear ramp right here. Bloop, bloop. So the meat of the image, our center exposure, if we're down on the floor, that's going to be where the camera is going to give us noise that we're going to have to try to lift our subject back up out of the floor, whatever shot. We want our face, our subject, to be in the meat of exposure, which is right here in the center. And that's after our conform to Rec 709, which is what we're going from Davinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709. So everything's been tone scaled so that when we look at this and we look down here, you can see right here, the subject is sitting right in just on the low end of the image. So somewhere around here, it might have been just a freckle that I clicked on, something like that. So just a minute, like you can see his shirt is, if we undo that. So say we click on his shirt is way down here in the toe, like it's down in the shadows. We've pushed it down there. That's the tone scale and the contrast curve, all that good stuff. But what we don't want is his face, the most important parts of the image, to be stuck down here. So this is where our perfect exposure over time, or P node, comes into play. And you can see here, with this shot, with this contrast curve set up the way it is, nothing's changing on his cheek because it's locked in. And so what it's doing is saying, what is gray in this image is below a half stop, below middle gray. So anything that is half stop below, like if I'm on set, I can go, oh, or I'm changing my ISO on my camera, I can go, this is from a normal pipeline of how my image is going to be worked on in post-production with the show LUT, the contrast curve, everything. Right now, his face is not at middle exposure. He's a little low. If I fiddle around, I can make this bigger or smaller, but that's not the point. I can see that the windows are kind of blown out and things like that. I can make this shadow range a little bit bigger. So just make this like 3. And you can see more below is covered before it goes to black. I can also make this a little bit bigger before it blows out to highlights, but that's fine. That's pretty much saying I want, 6 stops up and 4 stops below is what I'm monitoring. So around 10 stops of range. Boop, boop. So we just go back to 2. This is kind of what I usually use. And this is set up for any kind of workflow. So like if you were wanting to see the pipeline through to Gamma 2.2, you can do that. You can also just go from Davinci Wide Linear straight into it. You can also go from Davinci Wide Intermediate with no CST nor DRT. So if we turned off the DRT and all that, and then go back here and make the adjustment because it needs it. Most of the image is going to be about the same in terms. It's not going to have the color and the pop of various things, but what is meaty is right on his cheek, kind of about the same. There's some slight tweaks to where things are at. So if we just go back, we'll turn contour off for now, reset that, and go back to turning this on. This is our open DRT, and we're going to tell it we're in Davinci Rec 709, right around there. And now, if we were under here, you could see as we swing, disable. If we just swing our linear gain here, our timeline gain. So you can see if we just bring up our exposure, more of his cheek is in place. So the really cool thing is we can get this all nailed, and then once it's all set up and we have, this is our look and our show LUT, you just go down here to clip and you say generate a LUT, generate a 33-point cube, and it's going to come up with a prompt and tell you to save it off where you want. So then what you do is come back and test. So you want to go like this, corrector, and you're going to go grab that LUT that you saved, giving it a good name. So this is that new Sony S-Log LUT for this show LUT, and check it in the pipeline by circumventing if you look, we're going around it, and you can see our show LUT that we made in a previous video, the tutorial video, now shows where middle exposure is and what is blown out in highlights and what is in the shadows. And we can take this node out and just add a corrector here. Put that right there. And you can see, like, if we tweaked underneath it, we can see how it's changing and matching to show what is mid-gray. And if we come here, after this, we can go add a serial right after that. You can see down here in our custom curves, it's all goofy and wonky. But if we go peg his skin with a dropper, you're going to see right here, our dropper was right around in the range of mid-gray. So right in the section that we want it to be. And that's what it's sampling. And this LUT now can go on my camera, and I can see Sony S-Log, boom, like that. So that is, there's a link in the description to what that looks like and how to work with that. And I'm working on getting more information on that. So the other video, I did a live video a week ago, and yeah, I was trying to just figure out, should I do live videos? There are currently 3 people watching me, which, cool. So hi to the 3 people currently watching me, but I know maybe 100 other people will watch me later. And hopefully they like that. But the title of this video was Technically Technicolor. And this is a dctl that I've been working on. If we look over here, there is a ton of stuff going on over here. It is one of, oops, where'd my mouse go? It is one of those things. It is a very complex little project that I've been working on. And you can see this node graph is just test nodes and test nodes all over the place. But this node right here, this is what our image before. And we have it going from Sony S-Log again to Davinci Wide Intermediate. I had some just a brightness correction here, not much, just kind of made some tweaks underneath because I was testing things out. But what this tool is doing, if we look at this, what this tool is doing, and we look at all these good things here, and you go, what is a gel matrix? So what happened in Technicolor was they would take the incoming footage and have a black and white negative. They would screen a diffraction to separate red light, green light, and blue light, and create a red light, black and white matte, a green light, black and white matte, and a blue light, black and white matte. Now, normally, you've kind of seen probably some other Technicolor videos that have like this weird node graph that kind of makes a red, green. There's one on the channel that Unhappy Little Node Trees as well. But like you subtract half of red from green and kind of do some weird things in the color mixer, and the end result is you end up with like a purified red channel, a purified green channel, and then you combine those back together, and the assumption is, well, those purified channels are now Technicolor-ish. But that's not how, that's like an additive process. That's not how Technicolor worked. It was a subtractive process. You took what was your projector light and you put a dye filter in front of it, and that subtracted wavelengths of light from it. So they would, to make that dye filter, they would take the incoming footage that they captured in camera, make a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. And then that would create, they would have a gel matrix that was a depth that would absorb the dye when it was activated with acid. And then they would take the red, which would be now like a cyan plate, magenta plate, and a yellow plate, along with a black plate that was flashed with the negative of the green, but not as much. Press those together and squish them together in a machine that was like 30 feet long to make the new film stock. And so now there was pretty much like, you can think paint dyes, kind of the same as how your printer works in terms of layering cyan, magenta, and yellow and black on a piece of paper. Light hits that, it goes through those layers of ink and reflect back the colors you see. So you see the entire rainbow because of how those inks layered on top of each other absorb and refract and diffuse the light that's hitting it and reflecting back to you. In film, It's thinner and it lets light pass through, hit a screen, bounce into your eyeballs. Now, for a Technicolor thing, that's what the gel matrix is. And that is, you can think about it like this in spectrometry, and this is what this dctl is doing, is saying, if we have a set depth of a thing that absorbs wavelengths of light, what is, there's a mathematical equation called Beers-Lambert law, which says that if something absorbs this much light and has this much thickness, by the time the light gets through that thickness, this is how much light will remain. And that's how they tell like what kind of drugs are in all kinds of things. They look at your blood like that. But we can think through the same thing. So this dctl is set up in that same way, because a normal pipeline would be our input goes through, does a bunch of things, contrast curve, OpenDRT, all the way out. We're taking it and saying, well, what is our input red? So input X, input Y, which is our green, and our thing, and making black and white mats. Those mats are then, we no longer, we've broken the color chain. We are only using, if we switch to this diagnostic view layer, this is our new color. And you go, whoa, that is crazy. And if you look at the scopes, it's got some nice wibbles and wobbles as it goes all the way through the tone scale, and it looks very fun and wibbly. And we got that for as well as magenta. So this is a wibbly wobbly thing that goes all the way through. And you go, well, that's a green plate. All right. Well, that's because I've inverted it to show what colors are getting applied. You can see yellow is now blue, this nice whoosh coming all the way through the tone scale. And it is being filtered by OpenDRT. You turn OpenDRT off, and it's going to be like this flat spike. And you go, well, that's interesting. Why is it doing that? So OpenDRT is obviously having an effect on how that notch is working. We turn on this volume cube. You can see on the screen now these peaks and valleys. So if we turn pure white to xenon, now this is our light source, is that white line. So these are the wavelengths of light from a xenon bulb passing through. It's a swath of things. And we're saying wherever cyan is at its peak, 100% strength, all the way at the top of that curve, and we can tweak the roll off and tighten it and make it flatter. We can also make it wider so it absorbs more of that spectrum. So when you're looking at it on the little screen, so if you're looking at it up there on the screen, that little white line that's going across, all of those are wavelengths of light in the reddish spectrum, and the cyan dye is subtracting from that. And so at peak cyan dye power up here, we're now setting our red gel matrix to deal with that. So we should switch from yellow to cyan so you can see how that affects. And now as we look at this, you can see the thicker it gets, the brighter it gets in different places. And it's changing. This isn't a gamma curve or anything like this. We're just saying the distance light has to travel is being dictated by this gel matrix curve right here. And it's through these peaks and valleys that we have. And we can tweak and change how that shape of that dye curve looks, how it functions. Traditionally, the dyes used in Technicolor were a little more flat. So you have to define your dye. You have to pick your dye. And they did that in Technicolor. They picked what is a blue dye, what is a red dye, what mix and match. They try to figure out what is going to produce the best image by reducing and subtracting wavelengths. If we go back to our none here, you can see here is now our image after we fiddle farted around with subtracting out those wavelengths of light with our notch. So you can see by making it bigger, we're taking away, by making the notch wider, we're making less red light pass through. And you can see if we make it thicker, you can see it's getting darker because we're making it harder for the wavelengths of red light throughout our image to pass through this density matrix that we've defined. If we want to make it brighter and more red, we just take that back and make that a little bit thinner. We can also take down the dye strength and make it less pure. and kind of thin it out a little bit with some paint thinner or whatever. We can also make this notch switch not but thinner, and that's going to have an effect on our image as well. But this is so wonky. There's also pulling strength, so we got a little noise factor of how does if too much dye like kind of gets thick and pulls up in an area on the screening. But it is wonky. It is not graceful to kind of dial this in and create your image. So you do need, I haven't figured out how to not do it under DRT. I've been playing around with how to do that without DRT, open DRT, but I've been kind of, this would be just the normal pipeline of let's build and shape what that look is looking like. And this is one variation. Like if you look at through, here are all the different variations and things that I've tried to make it work. I'm on 6LA3, which this is, if you loaded it up on this image and took away this, this is what you would be having out of the gate, which you would be like, oh, well, there's no thickness. So we could also just crank that up and go, well, there's our image. Now we can kind of bring it back. We can kind of now recenter. We're watching it like you're pretty much trying to shoot a target on that vector scope of getting it to where you want your image to be and what you want it to look like. How do you want light to flow? And this is just running with the stock. This needs to be opened up. Black notch is wide, green flash. I got to work on figuring out the defaults for these things. We're working with a xenon bulb from a projector. We're going to tweak black. If you tweak the peak where black is, it kind of changes from a warm black to a cool black, depending on what wavelength of light that black layer is blocking. And now we can kind of just slowly tweak in and bring up our blue and kind of steer it around this way. Well, maybe bring it back a notch. Think about this. It's so wibbly wobbly to kind of steer our image around until we get to what we want. So we want to actually tweak this. And then there's this chroma. We can kind of push this out a little bit. And working on different things to kind of tweak how these settings work, kind of make them smoother. I haven't really gotten it to a place because you can easily just go, oops, that broke. That is magical. Still working out the math and the details for this. You can bring that up. I do like to bring up pulling strength. It just kind of tweaks the dye settings a little bit. And then, yeah, it's a lot of just working. Once you get it to where you want it, work in these settings. That's a little thick overall. So the global is a multiplier across all of them. So you can kind of usually leave that low and this bring in how you want it. Which, if you're watching me and you're going, wow, this is brutal. How is he not able to find it? Sometimes that's, yeah. It's tricky. That's why like this one was a more, oops, this one's gone too. Let's go to a different image. Like it is tricky to get this set up and to get this looking right. Where's one that I was working on? Here's one that has some interesting things going on. That, yeah, let's bring this in a little bit because I fiddled around. And you can see a little bit more of the character. Like if you look at things, you can see how it's so jumpy. We're working with 6LA1 right now. But I've been mostly making tweaks to how this contrast bitty bit works, and fiddling in with the saturation. So you can see if we look at how if you thicken up the dye layers, you end up with this little bit of noise, that noise layer that happens. And so that also makes your image darker because it adds more dye to it. And so now you're just kind of tweaking, finding. This one's a little bit easier. And other thing was I've been working on how can we best optimize the settings so that when you're tweaking it, it's kind of intuitive as you watch the scopes. And you make your settings and tweaks and changes there. But yeah. So this one is not ready for prime time yet. Mostly because I don't know how it works or how to get the best image out of it every time. Because it takes a little effort to dial everything back in, because you can go crazy and be like, oh, well, I completely lost it. But yeah, you can see if we were to go to a 6LA1, 6LA2, if you're wondering what that even means, I don't even know half the time. Maybe it was this image where we're going to have to bring in. So we got this. We can turn that off. That's probably what's causing some problems because it was built for that. Back to here, this mislabeled node, and we can kind of just bring this up. Kind of see if we can find it today. Just not be crazy. So what we did here was we brought up we're just kind of starting from a blank slate. And these are the settings that I'm going to have to write down so that I can set them as the presets, because that is helpful. And now we're getting close to steering that image around. All right. Very subtle. Right where we want it in terms of its balance. And then we can kind of, if we want it to be brighter, we can kind of tweak exposure here. And then we also have the other one that'll tweak exposure, but changes the color is your green flash power. So how thick and thin your black ink is, which may be warm or may be cool, depending on what wavelengths of light it is blocking the most. So you can tweak that and make it quite an effect. And then also this chroma push is just a... Shh. Thank you.
And I forgot this.
You forgot your purse?
Yeah.
All right.
And it has cars and money in it.
You have cars and money in it?
Yeah.
That was my daughter coming to tell me that I'm doing a good job making this tool. This makes the roll-offs be more plateauish in terms of how the notches work. You can kind of just see how that is happening live. Well, maybe make yellow a little wider. So you think yellow is blocking, yellow blocks more of the blue light in the image. So if we go back, we're going to get more blue. And then if we want to make this more narrower, like so, like that. And this is using our pure white. You can see if we change it to xenon, it's going to change. Like, but the light bulb is different or different. That is one of the notches. So pure white, I like, mostly because that's how we think a lot more often. Let's see here, we're kind of pushing out the things that I've seen. I'm currently live on the YouTube.
Why is your door open?
Because the daughter walked in.
Oh, I see. Bye-bye.
If we look at our scopes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the lines. Rarely will you see in a lot of the samples of Technicolor footage that I've looked at, the saturation getting beyond 5. So they stay almost seemingly very compressed and very dense in terms of their saturation. We can change the big sign a little bit, maybe. Kind of how that feels. Let's go where it cuts to the wide. She's looking there. Just, yeah, make the look the way you want to. So we can make it, you can see how it's just reshaping the curve completely. Oops, too much. I'm going crazy. Got to go back to, this is why it's so much nicer to be doing it on a panel. Yeah. So yeah, it takes a lot of tweaking, and that's why I haven't really figured out, should people have this much power in their hands? I feel like if I just go back to how it was, we were a lot closer before we started messing around with those darker. And you can work under it with your normal controls. So this is gamma linear. So you can, this is just, you gotta think about it, it's tweaking the gamma curve of the different channels and how they relate to each other to make your image. So in essence, how this breaks our normal pipeline of doing color, it's technically Technicolor, but I haven't figured out all the variables that I need to account for or be able to adjust to really make these images sing. I made one, got it right once, and it looked amazing. And my wife was like, "Oh, that looks very painterly." And then I've struggled to find it again. Just so many settings. You can see if we bring up that black natural, you get a really cool day for night if you're going for that. Because it kind of has that warm black, but you can also make it a warm black where now your black is over here instead of being a cool black. It'd be a cool little shot right there. Anyways, there's more on this to come. I'm still working on it, but hopefully you enjoyed understanding a little bit more about what I've been doing from that other video. Anyways, I'm going to head out now, and it seems like there was no questions. If you have any, please let me know. Otherwise, we started the conversation talking about perfect exposure and being able to nail it on set and easily generate LUTs that work with your camera by building out your workflow here. And then we talked about Technicolor and played around with the myriad of settings that I have in this weird tool set of trying to define what is truly a Technicolor image. And yeah, getting closer. I will figure it out. It has got to be mathematically possible to replicate the Technicolor process because it was just math. The dye had a certain wavelength of light that it absorbed in those layers. And so if we can define that in a way that makes sense and create a tool set that does that, then the process is the same. And it should result in the same types of images that are rich, deeply dense, very clearly knocking out spectrums of light. Not there yet. getting closer. I might put up the beta on my website. I don't know. Anyways, have a happy little No True Day, and I'll see you next time. Look forward to a more in-depth version of the perfect exposure tool, and check out the link in the description. Ta-ta for now.